We are live for our Vision Committee meeting for City Council. We're really excited to have RG Rio come and give a report to City Council. But before we do that, I would like to call roll, please.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez? Absent. Councilmember Jaquez? Absent. Councilmember Reed? Absent. Councilmember Schmischer?
Here.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Here.
Mayor Smith?
Here. Thank you so much. Ryan, did you want to say anything before we just turn the time over? Okay, RG Rio, you are on. Make sure your microphones are on when you address us as well. If you
Hi there.
can.
My microphone is on now. How's it going? Thanks for having us here today. I'm Chris Moffitt, president of Royal Gorge River Initiative Organization, or RG Rio for short. I brought some friends with me today. I got Warren Hart, vice president, and Martin, he's the guy always surfing in the river, so we brought him with us. And then this is Gary, he's the engineer with Recreation Engineering and Planning who helped us develop our plan we're gonna present tonight. My presentation here is basically the vision of what we'd like to see RG Rio be in the next 10 years. This is a vision meeting, and we're happy to have Canyon City as our home, so I figured I'd tell you guys a little about us and a little about our history real quick. So we are Royal Gorge Rio. We, through whitewater safety education, river conservation, and whitewater recreation, we will positively impact our community. Oh, well, it formatted horribly, so that's okay. So basically, RG Rio is a relatively new organization. We've been around since 2019. We got our 501c3 status. But WKRP is the older organization, and that was established in 2006. We started fundraising for a whitewater park in Canyon City, and the first Whitewater Festival, which was put on solely by WKRP, happened in 2009. 2010, the first two waves were built, and that's, they call it Fly Trap, the one right by 4th Street Bridge, and then one downriver from 4th Street Bridge were built then. In 2015, WKRP helped develop the Eastern Fremont County Trails, Open Space, and River Corridor Master Plan. WKRP hired S2O to design and create the River Improvement Detail Plan, which was completed in October. And then this plan provided a River Corridor Master Plan identifying projects to enhance whitewater recreation, fish habitat, and stream beautification. It focused on the Arkansas River through Canyon City from Pink House River access to the 9th Street Bridge. And then in 2016 as well, WKRP presented the city administrator with their plan for Phase 2 river enhancements between 1st Street and 4th Street bridges. And then I can't see below that, there we go. 2017, City Council adopted the Centennial Park Master Plan, and then we built the other whitewater feature at Ice House. So we've got a lot of history working with the city. We're very happy to continue to do so. So yes, RG Rio was formed in 2019, and so here is a picture of the river through town, and I'm basically going to take you on a little trip through the river through town. So we're going to continue to advise on the Black Hills property. This is the destruction of the old power plant. I thought it was a really cool picture. But basically, we are one of the partners that are helping in that project. And Warren is, you know, just always active in that project and has been very active in these projects over the years. And we're very happy to continue advising the city and Black Hills on what we'd like to see. We also developed the plan that shows the RV park and the open space and the trails over there. So this is the River Surf Project. This is what we got from Recreational Engineering and Planning here. And basically, you have the map in front of you, the big long piece of paper, and if you look on the left, there's a new river surf feature. And that feature is going to go directly in front of the Skyline Steel property. So maybe some opportunities for when we're looking at the Skyline Steel property, whatever business that's going to go in there, but someone that would obviously benefit from having a wave right in front of it. And this wave is different than the other whitewater features that we're putting in that it's a longer wave that's more adapted to stand-up surfing, like on stand-up boards instead of for kayaks or for rafts. So it's a unique feature different than what we have already. So that would be like phase one of our project, and that's what we would be shooting for to get done first. And then we're looking at actually putting a wave upstream of the pedestrian bridge. So you would have the wave where you watch the raft rodeo now. There would be one directly above that, and that would be another stand-up paddleboard surf wave. So it's got a longer face to it, and it's better for people to stand up in. And then all the way right on the map, the lower feature that's down near Black Bridge could use some work. So we've included that in this plan as well. But we probably think this would be a phased approach that we would come at this thing. And since this is our main project, that's why we brought Gary here. But I'm gonna move forward, and then we'll loop back to Gary once I'm through. Our other goal is to ensure that the Royal Gorge Whitewater Festival maintains focus and purpose while expanding reach. So WKRP started the Whitewater Festival. We love the Whitewater Festival. We want to continue showcasing whitewater activity and sport in the town and show the populace that they can actually use the river. That's one of the goals, is to get everybody out there that wants to learn something. And if you guys have any questions, please stop me too, because if there's anything you want to talk about, I don't want to steamroll you here. So we'd like to tweak the life jacket loaner stations to better serve the community. So we partnered with the city, with Arkansas Headwater Recreation Area, to get the 3 life jacket loaner stations in town. We have 2 down at Centennial Park and 1 over near Reynolds. And basically, those are free to use life jackets for the public. The PFDs are supplied through cash donations to RG Rio, or raft companies have actually been donating lightly used life jackets that we then send off to get screen printed and then brought back so that people know they're loaners. And it has been an enormously successful program. It warms all of our hearts when we go down to the river and see people wearing those life jackets and actually using them. We were worried people might be embarrassed, but there are many days where we're completely out of life jackets, and so we're hoping to expand the program and get more life jackets out there for people to use. So this has been a great program, and those are my kids. So.
Say, my kids use them too.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate it. If you're just spontaneously going to the park, you can grab one and just jump in the river and have a good time.
Yeah,
Such an awesome program. It's a partnership. We got a lot of help from Rex and AHRA to get this thing going. So.
Could I ask Chris just about that? I could not agree more. I love the program, and I think it's fantastic when you have visitors in town and they don't have jackets and what have you. I think I've heard that a lot of people were concerned that they wouldn't be returned and that it would be kind of a one and done. And I'm assuming that since it's been so successful, that has not been the case. So I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about that.
So there have definitely been many life jackets not returned. As long as lives are saved, the price of doing business, and if people would return them, that'd be great. But if they're keeping them and using them every time they go to the river, that's also good. Of course, please return the life jackets and please hang them back up. But it's just going to be the cost of doing business there. So I wish there was a way that people wouldn't take them, but yeah, it happens. So.
Okay, but it hasn't been detrimental to the program, and you see it continuing in future years. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say, I actually need to do a count this year. We inventory them every year, but it didn't seem like that many were lost this year. So
maybe with time, people are learning, this is how it works. You put them back.
Well, and people really do return them. So, I see most of them back there. What we want to do to tweak the program is we need more youth life jackets is what it is. We have a lot of adult life jackets, and then kids are putting on the wrong, misfitting life jackets, and AHRA is developing new signage down there so that people will hopefully know how to fit a life jacket better, because it's very important to wear it tight, have all the straps tight, otherwise they'll just float right off you. So we're working on those things. There's going to be new signage at the park over the winter. So.
Cool. Well, your kids are really cute.
Yeah, they are. Thank you.
Okay, Chris, just real quick, just on the life jacket for kids and smaller kids, has it ever been thought to maybe we publish something or something gets out that, so many people's kids grow out of their life jackets so fast? I know my son has. I would love to donate that to somewhere that someplace can use it.
Absolutely.
I mean, if we could get that word out, just a thought.
No, absolutely, Tim. It's a great idea. We do post stuff on Facebook, but then people have just left life jackets there that are not part of our program. So
Okay.
people will bring their life jacket, and that's totally welcome. It's a community program. So if someone has a life jacket and they want to bring it down and throw it on the rack that they're not going to use anymore, great. And when we inventory them, we'll get them screen printed and brought back. So.
Maybe one day in the beginning of the spring, you just advertise and say, if anybody has small life jackets or that, just do a one-day donation for a couple hours. I bet you'd be surprised.
Yeah, great idea. Yeah, we'll maybe try that out. The paper always wants to help us out, so maybe we'll advertise there too.
Maybe your first Friday, that would be one of the things. Bring your gently used life jackets.
I like it. Good idea. That is a good idea. Right now, so RG Rio is also the proud home of the Royal Gorge Gargoyles, the youth rafting program in town. When we started the youth rafting program, weren't aware of all the rules of operating in a state park, which the river is a state park through Canyon City. And turns out we were operating as an outfitter without an outfitter's permit, so we stopped doing that. But in the meantime, we became the men's under-19 national champion team. So Canyon City is the host to the reigning men's under-19 national champions. And these are some of the gargoyles here. We had over 16 kids that came through our program. And the future is bringing the gargoyles back to Royal Gorge Rio. And what we're going to do is we're talking to the rec district right now, and we're trying to work out a partnership with them where they run the logistical paperwork side of things, and Royal Gorge Rio is a like subcontractor. We bring in our people that are trained. We train more people to run safety courses, kayak training, stand-up paddleboard training, and rafting training. And through that program, we will bring in a youth, the gargoyles back, but also an adult program. So if you want to learn anything, no matter who you are, we'll do our best to teach you whatever whitewater activity you want to learn. The first step to that, everyone would have to go through a safety course that teaches you the basics of reading water, how to be safe in the river, how to swim safely in the river, and just everything that goes with that, basic first aid and life support, things like that. So we're working actively with them right now. We've had a few board meetings with them, and so that's an exciting future project we hope to see.
That
So-
is really exciting. Yeah, go ahead.
So a question on that, what are the obstacles to becoming a river outfitter?
It's an interesting one. So the River Outfitter program was developed by river outfitters, and they made it so that there was a moratorium on river permits. And the only way you can get a river permit to operate on the Arkansas River is by purchasing an existing permit. And you have to purchase the usage with that permit, and that makes them a very hot commodity and very expensive. There's only 42 permits in existence now, and they keep disappearing. And actually, the part of the park's future plan is it's supposed to be by 2030, they're trying to get down to 25 permits. So it's part of their operating plan, and we have to operate within it. So we're looking at different ways of doing so. We can go to the Citizens Task Force and ask them nicely for a permit, which we're going to do, and they'll tell us no. And then there's other companies that ebb and flow. And so it's just a matter of identifying those companies and hoping to get a permit. So
Mr. Administrator, isn't that our river?
Dang it.
I wish I could answer yes on that.
It's not.
It is a state park.
It is, the river is considered a state park.
And what were they national champions of, the men that were under 19 years?
yeah, so we were the men's under 19 rafting national champions, and we were invited to go to China, and then COVID hit. We were set to go to China and compete in the international championship. We're still invited this year, but because nobody's under 19 anymore, it poses a weird thing. We're actively pursuing this situation. Me and Kyle Horn are talking regularly about this, and it's not a secret or anything. We've had public meetings about it at the
Very interesting.
rec district
Yeah, I
board
hope that
meetings.
goes well for you, because how awesome for our teenagers to have such wholesome activities with great adult mentors in their lives for these life skills of something to do with their time. Besides, all the other things you typically think of teenagers getting in trouble with, but even just taking it to another level besides jumping off the Black Bridge into
Right.
rebar in the river or something, this is way better.
I don't want to see kids standing in the middle of the river just throwing rocks at people. I want to teach them how to use
go
it. Yeah.
do this stuff. That's awesome.
Well, and that's the other thing from a perspective, Canyon City, growing up, a lot of people didn't want to come back. And that's my thing is, if we can teach people how awesome this town really is and show them how amazing the river is, maybe one day these kids go get their business degree, can start a business anywhere in the nation. They're like, well, I want to go back because I love boating so
Yeah,
much.
they have an addiction to the Arkansas River.
Yeah, that's a great
That's a
addiction.
pretty good one to
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, so we're trying to bring the gargoyles back, though. But it was a great program, really was.
Were they rafting up and through the Royal Gorge, for instance, and things like that, or?
Nope. So we partnered with River Runners, and River Runners would actually take them on the Bighorn Sheep Canyon, which is their skill level. Part of the international rafting rules is you don't take the under 19 or the under 23 kids through anything over class 3. So when we did the partnership, we did a lot of things. We thought we were doing it right. We got the insurance. We were following all the rules, we thought. And so they only went through the Bighorn Sheep Canyon, and then we also practiced in our whitewater park a lot. And as the water got lower, we taught them to attain, which actually means to go upriver. And so that was a lot of our exercise, and that teaches them to read water, is they would actually have to float all the way down the whitewater park as far as they could and then boat back up. And it's a great training for how to read water and how to get where you want to go. So, yeah, but love the gargoyles. That's a passion project right there. I can't wait to get that back going. We have the Fremont County Guide Rendezvous. We just did that for the first time this year on June 3rd. There was a need in the county to educate the river guides, Jeep tour guides, all the guides in town. Any guide they were invited to come, and we had people from all disciplines. Brandon came out and from the museum and spoke. We had geologists, biologists, like a bighorn sheep biologist, a fish biologist, you name it. We had nature's educators out there, and just tried to educate people so that they could talk about local issues. We even had the prison museum out there as well. And then we had great partnership with the donut shop and Pizza Madness and coffee shop. Get out there and give these kids free food too, and they got a t-shirt, and they got a great experience of relaxing next to the river and learning about how awesome Fremont County is. And we're gonna do that every single year as well. We help maintain the river corridor with annual river cleanups. This year we got 1,500 pounds of garbage out of the river. We had over 100 volunteers, 35 miles of river cleaned. So we went all the way up to the Bighorn Sheep Canyon, upper Bighorn Sheep Canyon, and had companies volunteer, boated through, picked up trash, and got all that out of there. We got 5 tires and 1 truck topper, and it was another program that we're going to continue to do. And so this is my big one, right? I would like Canyon City within the next decade to be the host of the World Rafting Championships. We have the Royal Gorge here. We have our world-class whitewater park with Scott Shipley designed slalom course. And so we're a great candidate to host an international rafting event that would bring people from all over the world to come check this out. So when we hold our events regularly, we do it with this in mind so that we can practice our timing and getting the events right so that eventually, hopefully within a decade, we can bid for this type of thing and potentially have people from all over the world come to Canyon City to do World Rafting Championships. And if there's ever the potential of any sort of whitewater sport like rafting being in the Olympics, if we have youth teams participating in this sort of thing, we could very well have Olympians. If we start using our whitewater courses more, we could have Olympic kayakers or Olympic canoers. So sky's the limit kind of on this. Really good opportunity to expand Canyon City's footprint there. So that's my big goal as well. But those are the gargoyles. Those are the guys who became the national champions. So.
Chris, just out of curiosity, how many years in advance do they bid out the championships? Do you know?
I was reading it today. I think it's 4. We also want to identify and remediate danger river situations throughout Fremont County. Oil Creek diversion, we've talked a lot about recently. That's the diversion that's over near the Black Hills property. The day before Labor Day weekend, the Friday, Oil Creek Ditch Company believed they weren't going to receive enough water to get their decree, so they pushed a bunch of rocks into the river to make sure that water would flow to their weir to get their decree, which they're completely allowed to do. However, they completely blocked the river for any boater to come through right before Labor Day weekend. There is no takeout for people boating in the river until Centennial Park. So they made an impassable object in the river, and not only that, they then made their little canal look very passable because there's a bunch of rocks on one side and there's this nice flat-looking section over there. There's no signage there. There's nothing to tell people not to go to the left, and if you're new to the area and you're not sure, it looks like you should go left there. So RG Rio would like to help facilitate changes in people's attitudes towards those diversions. This is another diversion. Warren, what was this one called? Do you recall?
I think that's Fremont County. So coming out of the gorge, you've got hydraulic diversion, just right out of the gorge, and then you come to Oil Creek, and then this one is Fremont County, or they call it Fremont Ditch. That's just right up from what's it, McKinley? McKenzie. It's just right up from McKenzie. And then also below that, of course, is the Minnequaw Dam. So there's 4 diversions in our area.
Right, and one of our goals, right now you can't boat to Florence safely. There's no safe portage here. Portage means you take your boat out of the river and walk around. There's no safe portage in this spot. So any kids, people are gonna tube through town. They're gonna come into situations like this. A lot of times when they push rock into the river, they're not buying expensive, nice rock. They're using old concrete with rebar in it or what have you. You don't know. And so your youth may float through and have, get cut, get injured, get hurt. So it's important to have access to the river for everybody, almost everywhere, so that, ambulances can get in or people can get out safely if they have an emergency. So river access is really important, but also figuring out what to do with these scenarios here, because I think there's a way everybody can work together. There's also two fish that if the river were completely open and these fish were allowed to maintain their native range, we would have a much healthier fishery in town. It's the Arkansas darter and the flathead chub, which I know you've probably never heard of them, and they're very tiny little fish. But they're very important because they're feeder fish for the larger fish population. If you have a healthy population of those smaller fish, then you would have a healthy population of your bigger fish. And having these hindrances here don't provide access for those fish to get back up the river to see their native range. The biggest problem we have in that right now is the Minnequaw Dam. That structure from the river back down to the river is like 15 feet tall. And the water goes through there through tubes. So if you were to tube up to that and you didn't really know what to do, and again, there's not much signage and there's no safe portage, you would go up close to the dam and all of a sudden you'd just go under the water and you'd go through a nice tunnel under the dam and then just pop out the other side, and it's happened. And nobody's been killed recently, but there have been ambulance calls multiple times to the Minnequaw Dam. So RG Rio is working on getting the Minnequaw Dam project going as well. We're trying to get a boat chute and a fish ladder there. We have nominal backing from CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, BLM, AHRA, River Sciences, FAR, a lot of people interested in making it so that one day we can boat from Canyon City to Florence or boat from Canyon City to Pueblo or, do the whole river or something. Basically, the only thing stopping people from being able to do that are structures in Canyon City. So that's another project. We're still coming up with the name for it, but it's something RG Rio really wants to take care of, is these hindrances on the river to floating all the way through.
Chris, just asking about the diversions, as a state park, is there an entity that you've found in kind of at the state government level, whether it's the Division of Water Resources, or is there anybody who is responsible for making, responsible for safety on the river, or responsible for mitigating those types of disputes when they come up about water decrees versus, I know water law is very complicated.
Yeah.
But given that it's a state park, I would imagine that there has to be some government entity at the state level that's responsible for that kind of adjudication.
So AHRA, which is the kind of the governing body of the river down here, had said that when I discussed the rocks being pushed into the river and stopping fish traffic, they said they can't do that, but also they didn't do anything about it. So I don't know. It's a good question. And I am curious. There are grants out there. We've talked to American Whitewater, which is another nonprofit that's concerned with free-flowing rivers, and they've expressed interest in partnering with us as well. There's a Department of Natural Resource grant that's out there that we can start to pursue to try to get after these things. But yeah, I actually just ordered an Amazon book on Colorado water law for non-lawyers. So I don't know, maybe.
Well, how thick is it?
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe I'll have an answer for you in a few months. But I'm finding out. Yeah, I need to know a lot more about water law because the Oil Creek Decree goes back to 1862 or something.
Yeah,
and
fish
so
companies appear to have quite a bit of authority over how they operate in the river.
Absolutely, and we don't ever want to take anything away from them. We just want to partner with them and make sure they get their decree and everybody else survives. We want our people to float by safely and not even know that ditch is there. So kids don't get it in their head. They want to go try to float that ditch. The ditch that goes right in front of the building here is the Oil Creek ditch, and that goes under the highway for, how wide's the highway? 80 feet? Someone were to get in there, it's bad news. And there's no signage. There's nothing telling nobody to go this specific direction. So it's something to address, and we're trying to work with everybody to make sure everybody's happy out of it, because they should get their decree. Agriculture is very important to Canyon City, and I would never ask that anyone not get enough water for cattle or, the apples, anything. That's a great thing about Canyon City too, is our agriculture. So, yeah, we're trying to work with them. We want to build a relationship.
So
Sorry.
my daughter wants to be a hydrology attorney, so that sounds like a great capstone project for her.
Yeah, send her our way.
She can borrow his book.
Yeah. She probably has it. She probably already has it.
You can get it for her for Christmas. She
Chris,
doesn't.
just before we move on from that, Ryan, I had a question. There is some signage, I'm a tuber, throughout the summer down the river. There is some signage throughout that says, bear left in 80 feet for a dam and that sort of thing. Who's responsible for the signage that is along the river? Because it sounds like in some places it's not adequate. Is that something that the city is responsible for, or who is responsible for the signage along the river?
I would imagine if it's like, like for Oil Creek Ditch and I would say the ditch companies are, they're the ones who would be liable.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know offhand. I imagine AHRA has some responsibility for some of that signage, but offhand, I don't know.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but it really sounds like there are two issues. One is, right now, we've got a safety issue, and we don't have enough signage for people to actually know that there's a safety issue coming up, and that may be one group's or one entity's responsibility. And then the second, longer-term issue is how do we make sure, everybody gets the water that they're entitled to, but that we also don't restrict unnecessarily or don't create unnecessary hazards. Am I understanding well?
Yeah, no, it's a complicated topic. Liability has been brought up, right, Warren? Warren's been dealing with this topic a lot lately.
Yeah, we're in discussions with the ditch company also about that, about trying to get something that'll work for everyone. There is some signage, though. The signage that's existing now, a lot of it is on the dam, on the crossings and such. That was put up by HRA. And so I think that AHRA is the group that would be mostly putting up signage for the river safety.
I think what Chris is trying to say, part of RG Rio's mission is to eliminate the need for signage. That we want to advocate for engineered solutions to these problems that you will never know there's a hazard there. You'll just float the river naturally, and those diversions will be like you've been working on, an engineered solution that diverts that water in a way that's not really visible. Right? Is that?
That's correct. The ideal solution that would work for everyone, and Gary can speak more onto this because he's an engineer, but all of these diversions could be made so that they would work as a safe passage for floaters, and also they would have fish ladders so the fish could come back upstream, and they would not be dangerous to anyone, and they would still serve the purpose that the ditch companies want. They wouldn't have to pile rocks back up if that dam or that feature was at the same level that they pile the rocks to anyway. And then it would be a safe floatable feature for everyone. And just so long as that the ditch companies would also get all the water they needed. And the big thing with the ditch companies is they want assurance that they will always be able to get that. And that if it came down to the point where they couldn't get it, they would have means to come in and make it. So they'd get their water. They need a backup plan, basically, and they need full assurance that they'll be able to get their water.
And there was actually 2009, Colorado Parks and Wildlife and AHRA teamed up and did a engineering. It's the study I sent Ms. Smith and Ms. Schmischer, sorry, I apologize. But so it's the study I sent y'all, and that if you go to the back few pages of that, it talks about how they would get their decree and the ways that we could ensure that they do. So there have been studies done on this, and there is hopefully a way forward that we can get them to agree to. So But yeah, and that's RG Rio's vision right there of the future of the river Canyon City. So we want to make it floatable all the way to Pueblo Reservoir. We want to bring in youth and adult programs, get people using the river safely, teach them river safety, and we want to, do whatever we can conservation-wise to make sure the river is as healthy as it can be. So that's cleaning it up and keeping our native fish populations happy. So if you guys don't have any questions, I'm going to turn it over to Gary, and we're going to talk about the River Surf Project real quick, if that's okay.
Any questions from council?
I guess my only question is there any way that we can be helpful as the city, Ryan, when it comes to the last big issue? I realize that it's not our river, it's a state park, and that it's not our water, it's ditch company water, but is there any role that the city could play to be helpful in kind of helping facilitate some of that dialogue?
Yeah, I think, in the past, that's the role the city has played as facilitator.
Kind of a mediator. And we've had meetings with the ditch companies before, and the county commissioners and council members, and and at that time it was WKRP. So there may be a time again when we will need to do that.
And that's why we're here tonight. We want to be at the table with you guys, making sure that everybody's happy here. So, thank you very much.
Sorry, just to follow up on that, is that something that would be helpful at this point? Or do you feel like you're in good communication with who you need to be in communication with, and you don't need that kind of facilitation?
Well, we could always use help from the city for sure, especially if it's, we try really hard to meet these people. Sometimes it's really hard to track down the owners of ditches, or like the Minnequaw Dam structure took me 3 weeks to figure out who to talk to over at Evraz. That's a really interesting structure. It goes 60 miles to reservoirs, and that water actually feeds the steel mills in Pueblo. So it's very important they get their water, and we would never want to stop them from that. But it was hard to find the person to talk to over there. So that type of thing, facilitating meetings, being able to bring people to the table and get the conversation going is very important.
I'd like to add a little bit to that. We really could use the city's help when it comes to persuading the ditch companies to help out, and I'm hoping that the city can look at it as a public safety issue, especially if we get the chance to improve the park, to improve the canyon, the power plant, Black Hills power plant site. What I would like to see, or what we would like to see for that, is for it to be a really nice open space park. And if we do that, we're going to have a lot of people in that park enjoying it. One of the goals would be to improve the river, the banks all along that section, where people could go down and just, could use the whole section of river. And if we do that, we'll have a lot of people in that area, and a lot of people will be using the diversions, and in the area, the diversions in that island that's there. So we really need help, from the city so that they can put forward that it is a safety issue for all the people that are going to be around there. And we could just make it a park that would be good for everyone to use and that everyone would enjoy using.
Thank you so much for clarifying. I think that it's helpful to know how we can be helpful. Ryan, of course, I defer to you as to how that might be best brought about.
Yeah, and I think it's ongoing discussions and facilitation and solutions that are going to alleviate the ditch's concerns are probably going to be, some of those things that we need to talk about and discuss.
Probably the biggest concern is money. So some of those diversions that are safe, they cost a lot of money, and the ditch companies seem to be, you probably know more than me, but from conversations I had, more amenable. If somebody else pays for it, then they'll think about it.
Well,
Yeah.
I think part of the challenge might be, though, I'm assuming you're pursuing grant options, and most of the time, if you're going to be successful in getting a grant, you would already need the ditch company to say that they would be on board So I think getting folks to come to the table and know that they are on board before you seek and go after those grants, I would imagine would likely be important.
Yeah, the Department of Natural Resources grants that are coming out for just these such issues, they do exist, but when we had our last meeting at the Black Hills property, the ditch company was not willing to change a single thing at all and said that. I'm not mincing words. They literally said, nothing's going to be done to this, so don't plan to do something here. So,
Are you, about the diversion?
about specifically how the water gets in their weir is what, so there's the diversion there, but then there's the gates that they have in their system that they use to bring the amount of water that they need in, and that's where they were very specific. They don't want that changed. So that's the trouble we have is they're the ones who own the rights to that. So, and they have the oldest rights there. So if they say no, then that's what you can do about that. But yeah, if we can get the grant in front of them and maybe get their shareholders knowing that, hey, this is going to be a solution for the future. You will not pay for it, and it will be good for you for the next 100 years or whatever. That's our hope. We're trying. So if you guys, can,
We're shareholders as a city,
I'm
too.
going to ask one quick question. As with these diversions that, like the one you showed where, the ditch company itself went in there and did that, I know this from a fact, just from personal experience, in that river bottoms are private property. Only the surfaceable water is public property in Colorado. So, you can float it, but you can't touch the bottom.
Right.
But in theory, that's the law.
Yeah.
So do we know who owns the river through town and the
Well,
property?
It's different parts.
Yeah, it's
Along the
different
river,
parts. That's
it's
what I'm
different.
saying. So are some of these people who are putting up these diversions, are they trespassing? Just something to think about.
That is a great question. I mean, they do have to drive a big piece of equipment through the river walk there just to get to where they want. But I think they're allowed access because they've always had access, and that's they probably have an easement or something written into this, whatever.
Yeah, their water decrees are very strong and very,
Oh, I'm sure of
Yeah.
that. I mean,
So I guess just to put a code, oh, I'm sorry, please go ahead, Warren.
I was just going to say, we don't want to fight with the ditch company. We want to work with them.
yeah, no, I understand.
I was just going to say, so I think maybe when you have these opportunities that are in front of you, like the grants or like funding to come up with some solutions, if you do have trouble getting folks to come to the table, know that the city is happy to be the table convener.
Thank you.
as much as we can.
Hello, my name is Gary Lacey. I'm the president of Recreation Engineering Planning here in Colorado. And I'm a professional engineer and a kayaker, stand-up boarder, rafter, tuber for the last 59 years. So I like all river sports. We're a small community, small business that does work primarily with small communities in Colorado and across the country. And I want to first say how impressed I am with RG Rio, because we've worked with a lot of nonprofits and lots of cities, and they're just first class with everything that they showed, so it's pretty impressive. But what I wanted to do is go through fairly quickly of communities and projects that we've designed that are tried to get as similar as I could to Canyon City, and primarily look at the boating and all that stuff, but also the banks and the access and the economic development potential of these projects and what some of these towns have done. And I'm not going to forget, but when I get to a couple of them, just about, I'd say 50 or 60% of our projects have been dam modifications, just exactly that you're talking about. And they turn a liability into an amenity. And not only public safety, but it's something that's attractive and a lot of fun to go through. So all these questions are good, heard them tons of times, but we've always worked with ditch companies, and made it much better for them than what they currently have, so they don't have to get in the river. It diverts their water, but it's a solid structure. It's not something that washes away every spring. So, and the legalities are in there, but they have a right to divert water, and maintain their diversion. But it'd be interesting who's the underlying landowner, because they'd have to give permission regardless. So, so here's our gang working hard at work at the office, and let's skip through that one. So I'm going to start, since we're on the Arkansas. I don't know if you guys go to Salida, been up there, been along the river. It's a project we've worked on since its inception, and have added features and bank improvements and everything along the river. And it's really just changed that town into just a real dramatic economic improvement and recreational. Same with Buena Vista, we do the Whitewater Park up there at the South Main project. Siloam Springs in Arkansas, if you've ever been on the Illinois River down there, where Jim Walton lives near here, and so they funded this project in 5 minutes, just for a few $100,000. It didn't seem to bother them at all. And Pueblo, this is one where you're talking about boat and fish passage. It was a 12-foot high diversion dam, and we stepped the water down in 12 drops instead of one vertical drop. And this is a very important diversion for a utility company, and so it's maintained, but it's been a great project for Pueblo. So that's up there is what the dam used to look like, and then down below is what it's like now. And this is it from looking upstream, so you can see all the drops and the river access on river right, and on the left is the world's longest mural on that levee, but they've been taking it down. So there we are at the Chili Festival, surfing in the waves down there. Reno is another one on the Truckee River. It also had a dam, not a big one, and it was a very neglected river, and it was downtown. It was someplace you didn't want to go with family, especially at night. And the city came in and hired us and a great contractor and built a very large whitewater park improvements. And now it is the hit of the city, and they have a festival there too, which draws tons of people. But that's what it used to look like, one portion of it, and that's the way it looks like now. So it's replacing that vertical walls and concrete, and have nice stone terracing and landscaping. And they also have lots of river festivals. But this is, if you ever get a chance to go there, their festivals in the spring, it's just amazing how many people go and what impact it has. And this, yet another, this was a Lowhead Dam in Dayton, Ohio, and it extremely dangerous, and it didn't divert water. It was built for recreation, which was to back up water so they could float on it. And nobody used it, and people just started drowning on the dam. So we took the dam out and replaced it with a series of drops, and so it's just a great surfing area. And this, what you guys were talking about proposed waves here in Canyon City, this is a type of wave where you're surfing, standing up surfing you can be on a board or a stand-up board, and it's more of a green wave, and so it's not as retentive as a kayak wave. But what's great about these, you can surf, and the kayaks can surf, but the next second, a tube will go through and have fun, and the raft will go through, and then you get it back and surf again. So it's for everyone. It's not for 2% of the people. And they're in downtown Dayton, Ohio, which I thought I've never even been to. I'm not sure why anybody'd go there, but I guess I shouldn't say that. Somebody might be here, but you're from Dayton? No. Okay. I gotta be careful. And this, another big one, this is another dam where this is on the Bow River in Calgary, Canada. And it has big, very active diversion. And so many people were drowning on it that they put a sign that showed how you drown if you go over, and then a free phone to call the fire department when you see somebody out there drowning. And, I mean, it was horrible. I don't even know how many people. I know it's at least 20 documented. But anyhow, dam was modified, and we have 3 channels. This is a side channel, which is more for canoes and tubing and just a lot milder gradient. And so this is what it's like in the summertime out there. It's a huge hit, right adjacent to a big public park. And these are just a few more. This is in Cascade, Idaho, on the Payette River, where another wealthy guy threw in money and built a project. That town didn't have 2 cents to rub together after the lumber mill shut down. Another one in Ohio in Buck Creek. And another dam modified for low-level boating. These are some more Salida, kind of typical day in Salida. I think that was this summer, but during low water. And that's what I was trying to say. These projects aren't just river projects; they're community projects for everyone. And most of the use actually isn't on the water. It's kids waiting, people eating lunch, or hanging out. And having fun. This one we just finished in Longmont, Colorado, on the St. Vrain River, where my buddy and I were product testing the drops in the inner tubes to make sure it's safe for the public. And this is the one that I was thinking of when you showed the picture of the one you have here in town. This is another diversion, diverting water to river left. And the ditch company would come in every year, push the rocks up, just like you see there, and almost identical to what you've got, and convince them to. That's like we're gonna divert. We're not changing your diversion, but we want it safe, so you don't want people to get hurt. Divert the water, but also provide boat passage and upstream fish passage, and so that's the way it looks now. So you can boat right through, again, a more green wave, so it's surfing, but primarily so anybody can just float through it. And if you see just past him, there's a strip of water, white water along there. That's a segregated fish passage just for those little fish. And so it's low velocity water that the fish can pass up. The trout go up anywhere. And as far as tourism, I mean, it's just amazing what these projects have done. The ones, we did a few in Iowa, and they got the Iowa something tourism award of the year, and they're just extremely popular. From Missoula, Montana, and on the bottom right, I always like showing that one, or the Reno one, or the city of Golden, where I've seen growing up, seeing these towns, and just had no idea of the economic impact that these had. And just don't trust me. I can give you the names of the city managers or the community development people in those towns and let them tell you what has transformed their town from an economic standpoint. So,
You know, who I'd be interested to talk to would be the companies that needed the diversions and the dams and how
Yeah.
they work for them.
Yeah.
I think that would be a
That'd be good.
compelling story to hear from them.
yeah. But I was at the meeting that you were referencing, and there was 2 representatives from the ditch company, and the first guy said, don't touch anything. And so we talked and got it out of him that he just said, don't touch the gates and the stuff in the canal. And so, and he was a little bit cantankerous, but the other guy I kind of cornered, and so I looked at that, and I said, well, what if we just redid it so you never have to redo it again? He goes, well, that sounds good. And I said, so he said, where can I go? So I said, go to Florence. And I told him 2 or 3 to go, because we've done them above Salida on a dam. We just finished one on the Granite Diversion above Buena Vista, and Pueblo and Florence. And so, you know, there's lots of examples. So he said he was going to go check it out. He said, I want to see it in person. I don't want to just believe anybody. So, but you know, we could get the names if you want. So one's the state of Colorado, above Salida, diverting water for the fish hatchery.
Yeah, sounds like a good field trip. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Well, that's all I have, but I'd be happy to answer any
Test
questions or
those
go into
out.
more detail on this, on the plan. I think Chris did a great job of what we're proposing.
What's your timing on the phasing? So they're going, sounded like maybe the first phase was across from the skyline still in that area? What timeframe are you looking at?
I mean, it's always about money. So as we raise more and more money for these projects, the time frame is based on that. But is something we'd kicked around is possibly when you guys do the RFP for whoever comes in here, maybe they help, do the riverbank remediation or potentially even pay some of the money for the wave as well. Just an idea. But yeah, basically, same as before, we got to get grants. We got to keep pushing along on this and see where we can get with it. So unfortunately, don't have any timing on that.
Gotcha. Yeah, so the last project, that was a partnership with RG Rio, grant money and city match money too. What was it, like 500,000 from the city?
It was, yeah.
500?
Yep, the city was, right, city was the biggest, GoCo was like 300,000 of it, and then we threw in like 100,000, right?
That's correct, yeah. I think the city's ended up being close to 600,000, I believe. And then the GoCo grant also. And then, I think we put in like about 150,000 on it. One thing, this is just an idea of what we would want to do if we could do everything. So, we'll do it in phase stages. We'll figure that out. This is just was put forward so that we can start getting money together and start fundraising and trying to figure out how we're going to pay for it. Spend a little time when you get a chance to take a look at the diagram, but it's interesting how you'll also notice that the trail is continued through, and one nice feature in this is they've added underpasses underneath 1st and 4th Street Bridge, which will be a big plus. And they've also tied the trail, they're talking about putting in a concrete trail, which will be ADA accessible. So, and then it also tied the trail into the pedestrian bridge, so it has some nice features to it. But a good place to start, I think would be, is if we do have someone that's coming in to work on Skyline Steel, maybe we could hit them up to make that part of their proposals so that they could possibly put in the first feature and also do the bank improvements and the trail to allow that to happen earlier instead of later. And then depending on how much money we can fundraise, we can go from there, or we can add on to it with another feature, or later on phase in another 2 features at another time and just figure out how to pay for it all.
And we are, oh, sorry, were you going to speak?
Go ahead, I have a question afterwards, go ahead.
Okay. We are actively promoting this. Last year, we ran our head-to-head and slalom series, where monthly during the summer, we put up the slalom gates, and we have youth surfing competition, do things like that. We had our newest event at the Whitewater Festival, which is the youth surfing competition. It was so popular, had 20 contestants in it, and just a great event. Really surprising the turnout we had. And then on August 14th, we held the River Days Festival, which is RG Rio's end of the year festival. We ran the same competition, and there were like 15 more kids there. So we had like 35. We just had tons of people in the river using it, and that was just the youth of this community. With the Front Range being so close, Colorado Springs, Pueblo, big markets, we're going to keep running these events. And so, it's going to be bringing people to Canyon City specifically to use the river. And so developing this, we'll just continue to do that. We'll have more more ability to use different aspects, different waves here. And eventually the Whitewater Festival could literally go from the First Street Bridge all the way down here and have different events for different, kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding, stuff like that, so.
Thanks, Chris. And I'm a big supporter of you guys, but I'm looking at this and it's just a question. Especially the wave right below the pedestrian bridge, the main wave at the Whitewater, down at Centennial. So is all the waves then going to be turned into more of into a surf wave? Or are we going to kind of downgrade these for surf waves rather than the, whitewater waves, or?
It remains to be seen. Since we were doing the full project here, we just
Right.
included everything,
Okay.
basically. The WKRP wave, or flycatcher, is very important to us. That wave is what started the Whitewater
Right.
Park, and it has the raft rodeo, which is the most popular whitewater event we have. So, we'd be very careful if we do anything to that in the future. But it isn't the most up-to-date way of doing waves. So if someone did win the lottery and wanted to pay for everything to be updated, why, sure, we'd do it. But we definitely are going to be careful with where the money goes and what gets done with the money, because that wave right now works very well for its purpose. It has a nice face for rafts, and that's what we need for a raft rodeo. So,
What's your target fundraising goal?
I think it's on the back page here.
1.6.
Yeah, 1.6 million.
Yeah.
1.8.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but that would be for everything. That's the whole kit and caboodle. So we have to get on the drawing board here and figure out our phases and what we want to do with the phases, and then break it down that way, because that's going to be the way to do it. We're not going to get that kind of money right away, but yeah.
Very cool.
I might,
Told not to speak unless spoken to. So to your point, and I think as Gary illustrated, what we're calling a surf wave often works for multiple disciplines, and actually kind of opens it up to different disciplines. But obviously, like Chris said, we love our outfitters here. We don't want to, and we love the rafting community. We're not trying to take anything away from them, but on the other side of that, river surfing, and if you talk to REP and what they're being asked to do all over the country, river surfing is one of, if not the fastest growing sport in the nation. And it's got an appeal that is just overtaking the supply for new boards. Badfish, one of the companies, their boards are coming out, they're sold out pre-production. You're pre-ordering stuff. They can't keep up with production. Is that accurate, Gary?
that's accurate, yeah.
And multiple new companies coming up and spawning. It is really the hottest thing going, and it's only really projected to grow from that. And, we've come here to talk, and I appreciate you guys letting us come again, and you're all familiar with who we are and what we want to do. And Chris has done a great job just kind of marketing that. But I think what we want to really see is just, we know the city has a lot of economic development plans for the riverbank, and I think what I want to really make sure that's clear is just how we see this being such an integral part of that, and just enhancing the economic plans that the city already has, and just how we want to fit in with that in a really harmonious way, and in a way that benefits the community. Not just the surfing, but again, restaurants and shops and all the things that it brings down. And so I guess our biggest ask, in one sense, as these developments happen, and as the city owns these properties and kind of has that leverage with that, is to, however that comes up is, I'm, as some of you know, I'm a real estate appraiser too. I understand, you know, how developments happen, and these days it's rare for a developer to come in and have a big, you know, premium project like this and not have to contribute in some way to the community in terms of greenbelt space or parks or something else like that. That's kind of what we're asking for as these developments come up, that would be, if you want to say a requirement or an incentive for other breaks that they might get or something like that to, I guess, get the biggest bang for our buck. If we, again, as the city owns these properties, we have this incredible opportunity to get the developers to come in and provide money for those improvements too. So that's all I have.
I might make a quick comment on funding, which tends to be always a topic, and just listening and thinking back of who funded all these projects. And obviously GOCO is one you've got before, and they're a great outfit to apply. But there's, right now, I just found out yesterday, EPA has a grant program just for small communities, just for outdoor recreation, but for economic development. And unfortunately, it's due in like about eight or 10 days. But it's not a big application. But I'm working for a little town in Texas, and they just got over $1 million. And that was one. And then you're probably aware of the, you know, the COVID funds and infrastructure funds that are coming up, and they want shovel-ready projects ready to go. So I'm seeing a lot of towns getting ready to take that opportunity when the federal dollars are coming too. But it's got to be usually a city has to apply, and there's usually some matching funds.
Good to know. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Chris, Warren, Martin, and Gary. We really appreciate your time and helping us. It's been really, really fascinating, and I love the drawings and the presentation. Thank you so much for being a part of transforming Canyon City into something really, really special. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
The time has come to go on to feeding animals. I am going to or not feeding wildlife. I have to bow out. I have an 8th grade basketball tournament I need to get to. But Mayor Pro Tem is going to take over from here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So next on our agenda is something that was brought up in response to a citizen complaint about feral cat colonies and feeding them, and the problems that can create in a neighborhood. And so Ryan has put together a couple of examples of code that different cities have used to address this issue. And so, do you have something you'd like to tell us about this, or?
Yeah, there's a little bit, different flavor in all three of these. One's just kind of short and sweet, one's middle of the road, and one's a little bit more extensive. We can look further at some other codes and things like that. The one from Loveland kind of seemed to kind of hit the mark, and just about everything that's was presented to me through that original complaint. Taking care of feeding the feral cats, but also we know that there are folks in town who also actively attract deer and other animals to their property. So that this is open for discussion for council, and the will of council. What do you guys want to do with this? And we're happy to take direction.
So Burlington, which has the probably the highest degree of regulation, prohibits the feeding of feral animals. And then Loveland talks about wild animals, and so does Lone Tree. But they have different degrees of examples or restrictions on what you can and cannot feed.
And Loveland does include, it's okay to feed ordinary domesticated house cats, but not feral cats.
Right. Yes.
I do think that there's an important distinction between those two, though, because there are a number of, in the Burlington one, where is it, B2, I think that we do have a number of animals that were once domesticated and that have escaped and are essentially living as wild. Like, that is a key portion of our population. And then I would also just note that I don't know enough about how JJ's Helping Paws and other organizations go about capturing, I'm using the wrong words,
Right.
about trapping for spaying and neutering and rehoming. But I do like that there's an option in the Burlington for a permitting process, if that is in fact how they go about doing it.
And I'm gonna say, as you brought up, even wildlife, I mean, as far as deer and any of your big game, deer and bear and that's against state law. That's a state regulation
Right.
to not feed them.
But this would allow us to exercise our city police powers to enforce that also, beside, in essence, we'd kind of be doing the job of the Division of Wildlife,
Enforcement.
Yeah.
That would be my question, is the undertaking that it's going to, the undertaking that would affect our animal control. And, I guess how you actually manage that. Is that the word? How you manage the?
Yeah, I think, we would have to come up with some new protocols and, figure out how we're gonna, implement.
And that's all done through the PD?
That would be done through the PD, that's correct.
And has Chief Schick been on this conversation?
No, not to this point.
Okay.
Waiting for direction from council to see,
It's-
which way we're gonna go, if we're gonna do something, and, we'll go from there.
Ryan, we're hearing this, but is there a lot of calls? Is this something that is continually, or is this a few animals that are some people who are just, is this a number that's out? I've seen feral cats in my neighborhood. Do they bother me? No, the way I look at it, but I'm wondering, is there a lot of calls on this? Is this something that we really need to take under right now, or?
It's not necessarily something that I've seen calls on. The incident that Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick has mentioned, I'm aware of. It's probably been a year since this particular call came in, but there were some neighbors that were feeding. They were putting out bags of feed to attract the deer to their property. So I don't know that it happens on a frequent basis, but when it does, it tends to be on a large basis.
Yeah, I think that's really the problem. I don't think that we have so much, a problem with a person kind of semi-adopting a feral cat or a couple of feral cats, but the problem comes in when you have 50 feral cats.
Sure.
And that congregate around one house.
When it's a nuisance.
Yeah, when it becomes a real nuisance. And so it's like everything, there's a balance here, and how do we balance, people being kind-hearted and wanting to semi-adopt a feral cat or something versus somebody who doesn't know how to keep from having 50 of them that they've adopted.
Right.
I think it's an
And-
easy
and-
answer, and it is limited but specific regulation.
Mhm.
Limited but specific.
Right.
That's my opinion.
Is there a way to capture that so that it's, as Mayor Pro Tem was saying, about the nuisance that's being created as opposed to the activity itself? I also just kind of echo Councilman Dennehy's point. Like, I'm concerned that we'll have so many regulations and ordinances that we won't actually be able to follow through on them.
Yeah, in this particular instance where, this call comes in and we don't have a regulation against it, there really isn't anything for us to do. It's
Yeah.
just, sorry. Yeah.
So maybe, going back to Councilman Smith's point, maybe it is that like limited, specific, when it's creating a nuisance as opposed to trying to regulate anybody who's adopting one cat and not creating that nuisance.
And so that's the challenge, I think, is how do you draw that line when, because if there's a bright line on one side, it's not permitted, and on the other side, it could be permitted. And so, what criteria do you, objective criteria, because you want it to be not just based on somebody's opinion. You want to be able to read something and say, oh, okay, now I know what I can do and what I can't do.
Absolutely. In your research, were there any examples that were a little bit more specific, or that tried to define what a nuisance to the public might be when it comes to feeding feral or wild animals?
Not to address the issues that we're particularly seeing. It was more of a, it's considered a nuisance to feed the wild animals and attract the feral animals.
Well, if you look at Loveland F, it does say constitutes a nuisance to the occupants of the neighboring properties. And I think if you just added, like with Burlington, where they actually define feral animals, little subtle tweaks to like the Loveland, I think that it's doable at a, limited but specific, or I don't know if you call it an ordinance. Is that what it is, an ordinance?
To be an ordinance. So maybe there's the possibility of turning the crank a little bit too. We do have a 501c3 operating in the county, JJ's Helping Paws, that does trap, neuter, and release TNR feral cats. And that's what they mainly deal with. Our animal shelter can deal with cats, but most of their clients are dogs, whereas JJ is really, most of their clients are cats. They may have some knowledge or ideas about when things really become, how do you set that line? And it might be good to reach out to them and see if they have some suggestions. If the mayor was here, we might even talk about the possibility of getting a small committee together, that with interested parties, the people that are dealing with it now at one level or another, like the Humane Society, like JJ's Helping Paws, and with maybe involve the police department if they would be the enforcers, to just kind of have a discussion about where the problem is, where are the boundaries in the problem, what are the sensitive points that we perhaps maybe in our collective wisdom are not wise enough to identify from up here, but maybe turn the crank a little bit. I bet, but I'm encouraged by this. These are really common sense regulations. It may not, just adopting them is not going to be a fit for us, but there's some really good ideas in here that if we get maybe some more eyes on it and some more people giving us input, that we can devise something that would be suitable and appropriate for our community.
And really, isn't it something that we could technically do in like a work session versus having to bring it to a general government or something like that? Is that something that could be done with multiple parties in a work session, or is it?
Yeah, we can, what we would do is we would do the legwork before it came back to council.
Excuse me. And I get the feral cats, but, and I know that we're saying this is within the city, but, you know, we have Colorado Division of Wildlife Officers here, and I think if our police department, if there's anything calls that come in, I think that, you know, as long as they know, and I'm sure they know right now, to defer those calls to that state agency and not put that burden on us and not put that cost on us, and let the wildlife managers do what they're hired to do.
Yeah. So in other words, not take too big of a bite, but make sure that we're dealing with the problem that we've heard about and not, you know, trying to solve the world's ills.
Right, because, you know, like I said, you know, it's spelled out very clearly in the Colorado, you know, wildlife. And, you know, and we do have wildlife officers that live within the city limits. And if there's a police call or that, and I think that, you know, and I'm sure that they know that already, but if there's problems with that area, the police should just contact those people and let them handle it at that level and leave the city out of it and leave our cost out of that.
I do not know of anyone who has had, you know, the deer, feeding the deer, I'm not so sure about the details of that. That doesn't ring a bell with,
It's that one's a little bit older.
is it older? Uh-huh. But the feral cat one, it was really a severe problem that needed some type of, you know, boundaries around so that we could help the neighbors mitigate a true problem.
Well, and you could even put, you know, at the end of any ordinance, the state statute in which it is clear about what wildlife you definitely cannot feed by state law as well.
Yep. I think one thing that we could do even right now, just as a temporary thing, is just, you know, reiterate that it is, you know, against the law, you know, just put something, I mean, something real simple, you know, even on the website, you know, please remember that it is illegal to feed wild animals. I guarantee that there's 50 people in town that feed deer, if not more.
Can I ask a question? Sorry. With feral cats, they're not able to be trapped and taken into the Humane Society, though, are they?
No, they cannot.
So, then are you're telling people they can't be fed, but they can't be taken in? So what then happens with those animals?
So right now, what happens is, ideally, is that JJ's Helping Paws is made aware of the situation. They set out the traps to trap the cats. They take them in, they neuter them, and once they're healed, they release them back. And so the colony then becomes self-extinguishing rather than constantly expanding.
Just Mayor Pro Tem, just one slight tweak. I was a
Sure.
volunteer for JJ's for a little bit.
Sure.
They don't release them back. They actually have partnerships with humane societies in other counties and other entities other than humane societies, and they transfer them to other counties so that they don't go back into the Fremont County colony population. So they actually rehome them away from Fremont County.
So we just heard from JJ's Helping Paws in the community agency funding.
Yeah.
And they did talk about releasing them back, TNR, trap, neuter, and
Interesting.
release.
Okay.
And they did talk
Okay.
about their partners where they transferred them out also.
Oh, then perhaps they do both.
So you know, I just
Understood.
know what I think I know what I heard.
Sure. And perhaps they just do both.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe the way to turn the crank is to do a little process.
Thank you.
Okay, is that good enough?
Yeah, I think so. We'll put together a little committee and talk about this, see what we can come up with, and bring something back.
And I would also remind you, I wish the mayor was here, but there are, I know that there's appointments to boards and committees that the mayor makes, and that there are some expiration dates coming up on those. And so,
I've got the list ready to go.
oh, great. Oh, you're so efficient, gee whiz. Great, thank you for that. Okay, well, with that, unless there's something else, I think we're adjourned.